Good afternoon. Gerald Thompson here for Forum 4 submission for History 512, American Revolution. The amendment I chose for this forum is the Second Amendment. It has been the center of controversy for many years and a central argument for some Supreme Court decisions for many years. It reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." There are mixed results from the politics associated with determining whether the language of the amendment creates a state right or an individual right. But before I go into Supreme Court decisions, let's cover some of the history behind it first. Like many other rights of the people, the first 10 amendments became known as the Bill of Rights, has origins in England and in previous or earlier constitutions from the states. Starting with the history of armed citizens in England, the 18th century is where the controversy of a standing army was discussed and viewed as evil and an unnecessary drain on the country finances. William Blackstone viewed that professional soldiers endangered liberty. They were also viewed as an extension of the power of the king. The British Civil War and the military dictatorship that would follow further would solidify the view that a standing army would be a threat to individual liberties. So could actions of a king. Like Charles II, when he instituted the Militia Act in 1661, which seized the arms of the citizenry. The Game Act of 1671 was a limit of the right to hunt. When William and Mary became sovereigns in 1689, Parliament adopted a Declaration of Rights, which gave one gave rights to have arms for their defense. The Whigs in the Parliament were the loudest voices in favor of the right to possess arms to resist tyranny from the government. The ratification by later on, the ratification by the states of the Constitution was argued against unless individual rights were guaranteed. Some founding fathers and anti-federalists such as Richard Henry Lee and George Mason were vocal against the powers of a strong central government. George Mason is credited with the view that the most effective way to enslave a people is to disarm them, which is why we have the Bill of Rights and which is a guaranteed individual rights. Some of the Supreme Court decisions are United States versus Cruikshank, which is in 1876, and Presser versus Illinois in 1886. Both decisions supported the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But the key point and the key decision that they had is that it only limited the power of Congress to infringe. It had no effect other than that. In other words, a state or local government, if they wanted to restrict the right, they could choose to do so. 3 other decisions, Supreme Court decisions, later on, Parker versus District of Columbia in 2007, District of Columbia versus Heller in 2008, and McDonald versus City of Chicago in 2010. In a roll-up, all 3 of these decisions supported the right of the people to keep and bear arms is an individual right. It's also incorporated a right guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. It cannot be impaired by state governments. Present day events, you can see this year we had a very contentious hearing in the Judicial Supreme Committee for the replacement of Justice Scalia, where Senator Feinstein, for one of them, tried to get Judge Gorsuch, the replacement, to argue or affirm how he felt on the premise of the decisions, the previous decisions of the Second Amendment. It is my belief that the issue of the wording of this amendment is not completely settled. Thank you for listening.